Jake Morrison stood in the center of the largest room he had ever seen. The walls curved up so high that he could barely see the ceiling. Lights floated in the air without any visible support, casting a soft blue glow over everything. Around him, creatures from 12 different worlds sat in their special seats, all watching him with their strange eyes. Some of the aliens looked almost human, but taller and thinner. Others had skin that sparkled like crystals. The ones that scared Jake the most looked like giant insects, with clicking mouths and too many arms. He had studied pictures of all these species for months, but seeing them in person still made his heart beat faster. Behind Jake stood 3 other humans. Dr. Lisa Carter adjusted her glasses nervously as she looked at the alien scientists. Commander Rick Davis kept his hands clasped behind his back, his military training showing even here. Helen Ross, their best diplomat, nodded encouragingly at Jake. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Jake began, his voice echoing in the huge chamber. I am Jake Morrison, speaking for all humanity. We come before you today not just to join your great community, but to share something important about our people. A creature that looked like a walking tree made a sound that the translator in Jake's ear turned into laughter. The crystal beings hummed together, and the translator said they found something amusing. Jake felt his face grow warm, but he continued. We are grateful for this chance to speak. Earth has watched your signals for many years. We have seen your peace, your science, your art. We want to be part of this wonderful galaxy you have built together. The insect queen clicked her sharp mouth. Pieces. Through the translator, her voice sounded cold. Yes, young species, we know of your world. We have watched you fight endless wars. Very entertaining, but not very civilized. Jake took a deep breath. This was the hard part. That is exactly what I want to talk about. Yes, we have fought wars. Yes, we have struggled and suffered. But we learned something important from all that pain. He walked slowly around the center of the room, making eye contact with as many aliens as he could. We learned that sometimes peaceful people need others to protect them. We learned that being kind and gentle is wonderful, but sometimes being kind is not enough. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms leaned forward. Jake recognized him as High Counselor Zeth Kar from the Vorthic people. Are you suggesting that we need protection, human? We have lived in peace for over 300 of your years. I am not saying you are weak, Jake replied quickly. I'm saying that peace is precious, and precious things sometimes need to be defended. The crystal beings hummed again, louder this time. Their speaker, a creature that looked like living glass, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Young humans, you misunderstand the nature of true civilization. When species evolve, beyond primitive aggression, they no longer need such crude concepts as defense. Dr. Lisa Carter stepped forward slightly. With respect, honored ones, evolution never stops. On Earth, we learned that predators and prey both must keep changing, or they die out. The universe is big and full of unknowns. The insect queens. Translator made her voice sound bored. Dr. Carter, is it not? Your biological theories are interesting but limited. You assume all life follows Earth patterns. We have found that intelligence naturally leads to cooperation, not conflict. Commander Rick Davis couldn't stay quiet anymore. What happens if you meet something that doesn't cooperate? What if you find something that only understands force? Several aliens made sounds that the translators turned into laughter. The tree-like being spoke for the first time. Commander, such thinking shows how young your species is. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, we have never encountered what you call evil. Intelligence and evil cannot exist together. Jake felt frustration building in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. We hope you are right. We. truly do. But we want to offer you something, just in case." He gestured to his three companions. "Dr. Carter knows how life adapts to survive impossible things. Commander Davis knows how to fight when fighting becomes necessary. Helen Ross knows how to make peace even between enemies. We offer all of this to you, freely." A chamber filled with quiet conversations in dozens of alien languages. Jake could see some of the creatures looking at each other with what might have been concern, but most seemed amused. Chairman Veltar, the leader of the council, finally spoke. His people looked the most human, except for their silver skin and completely black eyes. "Ambassador Morrison, we appreciate your enthusiasm. Your species shows promise, despite your violent history." But Veltar continued, "True civilization means leaving behind such primitive instincts. War, as you call it, is a disease of young species. You will learn, as we all have, that there are better ways to solve problems." Jake tried one more. "Time. Chairman, we are not asking you to become violent. We are asking you to remember that some of us chose to keep those skills, just in case you ever need them." High Counselor Zithkar stood up, his forearms spreading wide. "Human Morrison, let me be very clear. We do not need anything from a species that still builds weapons. We invite you to join us so that we can teach you proper civilization." The crystal beings hummed in agreement. "Your warships will be converted to peaceful purposes. Your weapons will be dismantled. Your military will learn useful trades. This is how all species join our community." Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. "And if we refuse? Then you remain alone in your small corner of space," Veltar said simply. "The choice is yours." Jake looked back at his team. Dr. Carter shook her head slightly. Commander Davis's jaw was tight with anger. Helen Ross just looked sad. "We accept your generous offer," Jake said finally. "But remember what we told you. Today, we are a species that learned to fight not because we loved violence, but because we loved what violence could protect." The insect queen clicked dismissively. "Yes, yes. Very dramatic. You will be assigned territory in Sector 7. It is quiet there, perfect for a species learning to be civilized." As the council session ended and the aliens began to leave, Jake heard their conversations through the translators. Words like primitive, amusing, and tragic followed the human delegation out of the great chamber. Outside, Helen Ross put her hand on Jake's shoulder. "You did your best." "They think we're children playing with dangerous toys," Commander Davis said quietly. Dr. Carter nodded. "They have no idea what humans become when something threatens what we love." Jake looked up at the alien city stretching into the sky around them, beautiful, peaceful, and completely unprepared for a universe that might not always be beautiful and peaceful. "Let's hope they never have to find out," he said. 3 years had passed since humanity joined the galactic community. Captain Ben Tyler watched the stars through the viewing window of his ship, the UES Frontier. He had visited 47 different alien worlds in those 3 years, and every single one had treated him the same way. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're getting a response from the Vorthic trading station." Ben turned around. "Put it on screen, Danny." The blue face of a 4-armed Vorthic appeared on the main display. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Bay 7. Please remember that your crude engines must be shut down completely before entering our station. We cannot risk contamination of our advanced systems." Ben kept his expression neutral. "Understood, Station Control. We'll follow all your safety procedures." The Vorthic's face showed what Ben had learned was their version of a condescending smile. "Of course you will, Captain. Your species is learning proper behavior quite well." After the transmission ended, Danny shook his head. 3 years, and they still talk to us like we're children. Could be worse, Ben replied. At least they let us dock now. Remember the first year when they made us stay in orbit and use shuttles? On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Amy Johnson was having her own frustrations. She stood in the advanced physics laboratory on New Geneva Research Station, watching her alien colleagues work on equations that hung in the air like glowing symbols. Her research partner, a crystal being named Serinth, noticed her watching. Dr. Johnson, perhaps you would like to help with the simpler calculations? We understand that human mathematics is still quite basic. Amy forced herself to smile. I'd be happy to help with whatever you think is appropriate. What Serinth thought was appropriate was checking the addition on supply lists. Amy had 3 degrees in theoretical physics and had published papers that revolutionized human understanding of space travel. But here, she was treated like a student who might be able to handle simple math if she tried very hard. Serinth, Amy said carefully, I noticed an error in your quantum field equations. The third variable should be negative, not positive. The crystal being's body flashed with colors that Amy's translator said meant surprise mixed with annoyance. Dr. Johnson, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but these equations are quite beyond your current understanding. Perhaps you misread the symbols? Amy looked at the floating equations again. She was absolutely certain she was right, but she had learned not to push too hard. The last time she had insisted on checking alien math, she had been removed from the project entirely. You're probably right, she said quietly. I'm still learning your notation system. Serinth's colors shifted to what Amy recognized as smug satisfaction. Yes, it will take time for your species to understand advanced concepts. But do not worry. With proper guidance, humans may eventually contribute to real science. That evening, Amy sent a message to her friend Sam Parker, who was currently on the alien trade world, Nexus Prime. Sam ran a small company that sold human goods to alien markets. Sam read Amy's message while sitting in his tiny shop, surrounded by items from Earth. A group of insect-like Kethri were examining a collection of human paintings, clicking their mandibles in what sounded like laughter. Look at this one of the Kethri said through the translator. They actually use primitive pigments applied to flat surfaces. How wonderfully crude. Another Kethri picked up a small sculpture. And this? They carved it from dead tree. Matter. Imagine the limited thinking required to create art from such basic materials. Sam walked over to them, keeping his business smile in place. Those pieces are quite popular with human collectors. Each one took the artist many hours to create. Oh yes, the first Kethri said, we find human art very entertaining. It reminds us of our own species' early development, before we learned to create true beauty with thought alone. They bought several pieces, but Sam knew they weren't buying them as art. They were buying them as curiosities, the way humans might buy a child's drawing if it was amusing enough. Later that day, Sam got another visitor. A tall Zentari diplomat named Colvin came into the shop looking for human music. I am hosting a cultural appreciation event, Colvin explained. We thought it would be amusing to include some examples of primitive musical expression. Sam showed him a collection of human music from different time periods and cultures. Colvin listened to samples with the polite attention someone might give to a pet trying to do tricks. Fascinating, Colvin said after hearing a symphony by Mozart. Such simple harmonic structures. And this one uses actual physical instruments? How delightfully primitive. Sam's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. That particular piece is considered one of the greatest achievements in human artistic history. Oh, I do not mean to insult, Colvin said quickly. For your stage of development, it is quite impressive. In a few thousand years, when your species matures, you will look back on this period with the same fond amusement we do. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, Commander Laver Brooks was learning her own lessons about alien attitudes. She had volunteered to help the galactic peace Corps deal with pirates who were attacking trade routes. The Peace Corps was run by the Ethereals, the crystal beings who considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their commander, Admiral Krextall, had accepted Laura's offer of help with obvious reluctance. Commander Brooks, Admiral Krextall said, his glass-like body reflecting the lights of his command ship, we appreciate Earth's desire to contribute. However, space combat requires centuries of experience and philosophical development. Laura had trained her entire life for space combat. She had studied every battle in human history and several alien conflicts that had been made public. But she found herself assigned to check supply inventories while alien officers planned the actual operation. Admiral, Laura said during one planning session, the pirates are using hit-and-run tactics. In human military history, the best counter for that is to predict their targets and set traps. The alien officers exchanged looks that Laura had learned. Meant they thought she had said something childishly obvious. Commander, Admiral Krextall said patiently, we are quite familiar with basic tactical concepts. However, true military art requires understanding the deeper philosophical implications of conflict resolution. What if they don't want to resolve? Anything? Laura asked. What if they just want to steal and destroy? Several aliens made sounds that the translator turned into gentle laughter. Commander Brooks, such black and white thinking is exactly why young species struggle with complex situations. There are always alternatives to crude force. The mission was a disaster. The aliens spent so much time trying to communicate with the pirates and understand their motivations that the pirates escaped with 3 more cargo ships. When Laura suggested a more direct approach, she was told that humans simply didn't understand sophisticated warfare. That night, Laura sent a message to her old friend, General Paul Hayes, back on Earth. Paul, she wrote, they keep treating U.S. like children who found a gun. They think our way of fighting is crude and simple. They have no idea that sometimes crude and simple is exactly what works. Paul's reply came back within hours. Laura, I've been watching the reports from all our people out there. The pattern is always the same. They want us to act like them, think like them, fight like them, but they don't want us to actually help them do anything important. The question is, Paul continued, what happens when they face something that doesn't want to be civilized? Something that doesn't care about their philosophy and their sophisticated approaches? Something that just wants to destroy? Laura stared at Paul's message for a long time. Around her, the alien ship hummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced technology operated by beings who had forgotten that the universe could be dangerous. She hoped Paul was wrong. She hoped the aliens were right about the universe being a place where intelligence naturally led to peace and cooperation. But deep down, Laura remembered her history lessons. She remembered that every human civilization that had forgotten how to fight had eventually been conquered by one that remembered. The aliens thought humanity's greatest weakness was their willingness to use violence. Laura was beginning to suspect it might actually be their greatest strength. Time would tell which of them was right. The first warning came from a deep space monitoring station on the edge of the galaxy. The technician, a young Zentari named Telmar, stared at his readings with confusion. Entire star systems were simply disappearing from his sensors. Supervisor. Krendall, Telmar called out. I'm getting some very strange readings from Sector 97. Supervisor Krendall walked over, his silver skin catching the light from the control panels. What kind of strange readings, Telmar? Well, that's just it. I'm getting no readings at all. 3 systems that were there yesterday are just gone. Krendall frowned and checked the equipment. Run a full diagnostic. The sensors must be malfunctioning. But the sensors were working perfectly. Over the next week, 12 more star systems vanished. Not destroyed, not abandoned, completely gone, as if they had never existed at all. The news reached the Galactic Council within days. Emergency sessions were called. Scientists from every species examined the data and came to an impossible conclusion. Something was consuming entire solar systems, including the stars themselves. Captain Kevin Walsh received the first military briefing 3 weeks later. He commanded the UES Defiant, one of humanity's newer ships that had been built according to alien safety standards. Most of its weapons had been removed and replaced with more civilized, defensive systems. The briefing was held aboard the Vorthic flagship, the Eternal Harmony. Kevin sat with a dozen other human officers, while High Admiral Zethmer explained. The situation? The entity appears to be some form of unknown alien technology, the four-armed commander said, gesturing at a holographic display. It consumes all matter and energy in a system, and moves to the next target. Captain Janet Stone, one of Kevin's colleagues, raised her hand. What about evacuation efforts? Are we organizing rescue operations for populated systems in its path? High Admiral Zethmer's expression showed surprise. Captain Stone, surely you understand that we cannot risk our ships against an unknown enemy. Our first priority must be gathering information and finding a peaceful solution. Kevin felt his stomach drop. Sir, with respect, how do you make peace with something that eats entire planets? Captain Walsh, the Admiral replied with a patient tone Kevin had grown to hate. Your species' tendency toward violent solutions is exactly why you need our guidance. Every problem has a civilized answer. The first major engagement happened 2 months later. Kevin watched from the Defiance bridge as the combined fleets of 3 alien species approached the entity. They called it the Devourer now, though nobody knew if it was a single creature or a collection of ships. The alien fleets were magnificent. Crystalline ethereal vessels that looked like floating jewels. Sleek Vorthic warships with their perfect geometric designs. Elegant Centauri cruisers that moved like dancers through space. Nearly 1,000 ships total, representing the finest military technology in the galaxy. All human vessels will remain at the rear of the formation, came the order from Admiral Krextel. You will observe and learn how civilized species conduct warfare. Kevin wanted to argue, but his orders from Earth were clear. Cooperate with the aliens and try to learn whatever they could. The battle was unlike anything Kevin had ever seen. The alien weapons were beautiful, streams of pure energy that painted space with brilliant colors. Force fields that sparkled, like rainbows. Missiles that looked more like works of art than instruments of war. For the first hour, it seemed like the aliens might actually win. Their coordinated attacks hit the Devourer from every angle, and parts of the enormous entity seemed to take damage. Then everything went wrong. The damaged sections of the Devourer simply grew back. Worse, it began to absorb the energy from the alien weapons, using their own attacks to make itself stronger. When the ethereal fleet tried to retreat, they found that their beautiful crystal ships were being pulled toward the entity. Like metal to a magnet. Kevin watched in horror as ship after ship was consumed, not destroyed, eaten. The Devourer seemed to digest them completely, growing larger with each vessel it absorbed. All ships, full retreat. Admiral Krextel ordered, but it was too late for most of his fleet. The final count was devastating. 700 alien ships lost. Nearly 2 million crew members dead. The Devourer had grown to twice its original size and was moving toward the next system. That night, Dr. Patricia Lee called an emergency meeting with the human delegation. She was Earth's top expert on physics, and she had been studying the battle. Recordings. I think I know what we're dealing with, she said, her face pale with exhaustion. It's not just eating matter. It's converting everything into pure energy, and then using that energy to grow and reproduce. Admiral Steve Murphy, the highest-ranking human military officer in the region, leaned forward. "Can we stop it?" Patricia nodded slowly. "Maybe, but not with energy weapons. Those just feed it. We need kinetic weapons, things that hit it with pure physical force. And we need nuclear weapons to disrupt its energy conversion process." The room fell silent. Kinetic weapons and nuclear devices were the two technologies that the aliens had made humanity abandon when they joined galactic society. Commander Carol Green spoke up. "I still have the technical specifications for our old rail guns. We never actually destroyed the plans. And I know where we hid the nuclear stockpiles," added Colonel Mary Foster. "Earth Command never trusted the aliens completely, so we kept some weapons in secret storage." Admiral Murphy stood up. "This is it, people. This is what Ambassador Morrison tried to warn them about 4 years ago. The universe isn't always friendly, and sometimes you need to fight ugly to survive." 3 days later, Patricia presented her findings to the Galactic Council. The alien representatives listened with growing horror as she explained that their most advanced weapons were actually helping the enemy. "Dr. Lay," High Counselor Zethkar said, his forearms trembling slightly, "surely there must be a more civilized approach. These kinetic weapons you describe are barbaric." "With respect, Counselor," Patricia replied, "barbaric weapons might be the only things that work against this threat." The ethereal representative, Admiral Krextal, made sounds that the translator interpreted as distress. "To use such primitive methods would be to abandon everything our civilization stands for." Captain Kevin Walsh had heard enough. He stood up, ignoring the angry looks from the alien officers. "Admiral, permission to speak freely?" "Captain Walsh, this is not the time for—" "It's exactly the time," Kevin interrupted. "You've lost 3/4 of your combined fleets fighting this thing your way. It's eaten 6 star systems and is moving toward more populated areas. How many billions of people are you willing to let die to protect your principles?" The chamber erupted in angry alien voices. Several species made sounds of outrage at Kevin's disrespectful tone. Chairman Vieltar called for order. "Captain Walsh, your emotional outburst demonstrates exactly why humans are not ready for leadership roles." "Maybe not," Kevin replied. "But we're ready to do what you can't. We're ready to fight ugly if it means saving lives." Dr. Patricia Lee stepped forward. "Honored council members, the Devourer has consumed the Outer Rim territories. At its current rate of expansion, it will reach the core worlds within 6 months. The mathematics are simple. Either we use weapons that can actually hurt it, or we lose everything." The aliens exchanged uncomfortable looks. High Counselor Zethkar spoke for many of them. "Dr. Lay, even if your theory is correct, how could we justify abandoning our moral principles? If we become barbarians to fight barbarians, have we really won?" Admiral Steve Murphy joined Kevin at the speaker's platform. "Counselor, I've studied every major war in galactic history. Every time a peaceful civilization survived, it was because someone else was willing to do the dirty work of protecting them. That someone else was usually us," Murphy continued. "For 4 years, you've been trying to civilize us. You've been trying to make us more like you. But now you need us to be exactly what we've always been." The chamber fell silent. Through the great windows, the stars looked peaceful and eternal. But everyone in the room knew that somewhere out there, an unstoppable force was consuming everything. In its path, Chairman Veltar finally spoke. "What exactly are you proposing, Admiral Murphy?" "Give us back our teeth," Murphy said simply. "Let us build the weapons we need. Let us fight the way we know how to fight. And most importantly, get out of our way and let us save your civilization." The vote was close. 7 species in favor, 5 against. For the first time since joining the galactic community, humanity was being asked to be what the aliens had always feared they were. Kevin looked at his fellow human officers. They all knew what this meant. They were about to show the galaxy exactly what humans could do when the gloves came off. He just hoped the aliens would still want them around when it was over. The emergency construction began immediately. On 12 different human worlds, factories that had been shut down for years roared back to life. Workers who had learned civilized trades remembered their old skills and started building weapons. The galaxy had not seen in centuries. Dr. Amy Johnson stood in the main assembly hall of the lunar shipyards, watching human engineers install railguns onto converted cargo ships. The weapons looked crude compared to alien technology, just long metal tubes designed to throw chunks of metal at incredible speeds. But after years of being treated like a child by her alien colleagues, Amy felt proud of these simple, deadly machines. Dr. Johnson, a familiar voice said behind her. She turned to see Sarenth, her crystal alien research partner from New Geneva Station. The being's colors showed obvious distress. Sarenth, what are you doing here? I came to apologize, Sarenth said, the colors in her crystal body flickering rapidly. And to ask for help. Amy raised an eyebrow. Help? From primitive human science? Sarenth's colors dimmed with what Amy had learned was shame. Dr. Johnson, the devourer consumed my home system yesterday. 3 billion of my people are gone. I was wrong about your species. We all were. Amy felt her anger fade away. Despite everything, seeing Sarenth's grief reminded her why they were fighting. What kind of help do you need? The railgun calculations, Sarenth said quietly. Our computers can design beautiful energy weapons, but we have no experience with simple kinetic physics. We do not know how to make things that just ... hit hard. For the first time in years, Amy smiled at her alien colleague. Sarenth, hitting things hard is something humans have been perfecting for thousands of years. I'd be happy to teach you. Meanwhile, on the military training station orbiting Mars, General Paul Hayes was having a very different conversation with alien military leaders. The station had been converted from a museum into an active training facility almost overnight. Admiral Kreckstow of the Ethereals stood uncomfortably in the human war room, surrounded by screens showing tactical displays. That looked nothing like the elegant holographs his people preferred. Everything was flat, practical, and focused on one simple question: how to destroy the enemy as efficiently as possible. General Hayes, Admiral Kreckstow said, his crystal body reflecting the harsh white lights. These tactical scenarios you have shown us are ... disturbing. Paul looked up from a planning table covered with paper maps, another human anachronism that the aliens found primitive. Which part disturbs you, Admiral? The part where we win, or the part where we save millions of lives? The methods, Admiral Kreckstow replied. These kamikaze attacks you describe, deliberately sacrificing ships and crews. It goes against everything we believe about the value of individual life. Colonel Tony Miller joined the conversation. He had been studying alien military doctrine for weeks and was frustrated by what he found. Admiral, with respect, your people value individual life, so much that you're willing to let entire civilizations die rather than ask some individuals to take risks. That is not fair, Colonel Miller, isn't it? Tony pulled up a tactical display showing the last alien engagement with the Devourer. Your ships retreated the moment they started taking casualties. The Devourer ate 6 planets while your fleets regrouped and held committee meetings about acceptable loss ratios. Admiral Kreckstow's colors flashed with anger. We do not throw away leaves carelessly like your species does. General Hayes stood up, his face hard. Admiral, we don't throw away lives carelessly either. But we understand something you don't. Sometimes the only way to save 1,000,000 lives is to risk 1,000. Sometimes the only way to protect the weak is for the strong to accept danger. But how do you choose? Admiral Krextall asked, and for the first time his voice sounded genuinely confused rather than condescending. How do you decide who lives? And who dies? Paul's expression softened slightly. That's the burden of command, Admiral. The burden we've been carrying for our entire species' history. And it's a burden we're willing to carry for your species too, if you'll let us. On Earth, Ambassador Jake Morrison sat in a secure conference room with the leaders of every major human government. The room was deep underground, protected by shields that even alien sensors couldn't penetrate. The aliens are scared, Jake reported to the assembled leaders. Some of them are starting to understand what they're really facing, but most still think there has to be a civilized solution. President Martinez of the American Federation leaned forward. What about their military commanders? Are any of them willing to learn our methods? A few, Jake replied. But they're fighting their own people as much as they're fighting the devourer. Half the alien species are more afraid of what we might become than what the devourer might do. General Patricia Stone, Earth's highest-ranking military officer, shook her head. They created this problem themselves. They spent so many generations being peaceful that they forgot how to defend themselves. The question is, President Shun of the Asian Alliance added, what happens after we save them? Will they go back to treating us like dangerous children? Jake was quiet for a moment. Some will, but others are starting to understand it may be. Being dangerous isn't always a bad thing. Maybe civilization needs guardians who are willing to do what civilized people can't. 3 weeks into the military cooperation, the first joint human-alien operation was planned. Captain Ben Tyler found himself in command of a mixed fleet heading toward the Devourer's current location. His flagship, the Hughes Hammer, had been retrofitted with the largest railguns human engineers could build. Alongside him flew ships from 6 different alien species, all equipped with human-designed kinetic weapons that looked hideously out of place on their elegant hulls. Captain Tyler, came a transmission from the Vorthic heavy cruiser Serenity. This is Commander Kethvol. My crew is ... uncomfortable with these new weapon systems. Ben understood. The Vorthic ship had been beautiful before the retrofit. Now it bristled with ugly metal tubes and missile pods that completely ruined its graceful lines. Commander Kethvol, I know the weapons look crude, but crude weapons are what we need right now. It is not their appearance that troubles my crew, Captain Tyler. It is what they represent. For 3,000 years, my people have prided themselves on fighting with elegance and honor. These weapons are designed only to destroy. Ben thought about his response carefully. Commander, elegance and honor are wonderful things, but they're luxury items. When something is trying to eat your family, you don't worry about fighting pretty. You worry about fighting effectively. The Joint Fleet's first engagement with the Devourer Scout Force was a revelation. The human kinetic weapons tore through the enemy constructs like paper, while the alien energy weapons barely scratched them. But the cost was exactly what the aliens had feared. The human ships fought with a ruthlessness that horrified their alien allies. Captain Carol Green deliberately rammed her damaged destroyer into a devourer-feeding tentacle, sacrificing her ship and crew to save an alien colony ship. Commander Kethvol watched the destruction in shock. Captain Tyler, the human ship could have retreated. Why did Captain Green choose to die? Because she chose to save 3 million colonists instead, Ben replied. That's what humans do, Commander. We make the hard choices so others don't have to. After the battle, the alien crews were quiet. Some seemed disturbed by human tactics. Others seemed thoughtful. A few, like Commander Kethvol, seemed to be learning something they had never expected. Captain Tyler, Kethval said as their ships regrouped, I am beginning to understand why your species warned us about yourselves. You are not violent because you enjoy destruction. You are violent because you will do anything to protect others. That's right, Commander. And that's exactly why you should be afraid of us, because now we're protecting you too. The message from the Galactic Council came that evening. More alien species were requesting human military advisors. The Ethereals wanted to learn human tactics. The Centauri were asking for human weapons, but there was also growing opposition. Several species had withdrawn from the joint fleet, claiming that working with humans was corrupting their moral integrity. High Counselor Zethkar's message was typical of this faction. We are becoming monsters to fight monsters. If we win this war at the cost of our souls, have we truly won anything? Jake Morrison read the message and sent back a simple reply. Counselor, in 6 months, the Devourer will reach the core worlds. You can keep your souls and lose your lives, or you can let us help you save both. But decide quickly. The universe won't wait for your philosophical debates. As Jake sent the message, he looked out at the stars and wondered what kind of galaxy would be left when this was all over. Would humanity be welcomed as saviors or feared as necessary evils? He supposed they would find out soon enough. The real fighting hadn't even started yet. Admiral Steve Murphy stood on the bridge of the UESS Devastator, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. 600 human ships floated alongside 300 alien vessels, all aimed at the same target, the Devourers. Main force approaching the Kepler system. Admiral, his communications officer called out, the alien fleet commanders are requesting final tactical briefings. Steve nodded. Put them all on screen. Dozens of alien faces appeared on the main display. Some looked nervous. Others looked confused. A few, like Commander Kethval, looked determined but worried. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, Steve began. Today we stop playing defense. Today we take the fight to them. Admiral Krexdale's crystal form flickered with anxious colors. Admiral Murphy, surely we will attempt communication first? There must be some way to reach a peaceful solution. Steve's jaw tightened. Admiral, they've eaten 47 star systems and killed 12 billion people. The time for talking is over. But Admiral Murphy, High Counselor Zethkar interrupted, his forearms gesturing frantically. What you are proposing, these tactics are so aggressive, so brutal. Yes, they are, Steve replied without apology, because brutal tactics work. Your elegant, civilized methods got your people killed. Our ugly, primitive methods are going to save what's left. The battle began 3 hours later. Captain Carl Green led the first wave in her retrofitted cruiser, the U.E.'s Vengeance. Her ship had been stripped of everything unnecessary: crew quarters, recreational facilities, even most of the life support systems. Everything was sacrificed to make room for more weapons and armor. Devourer constructs detected, her tactical officer reported. 67 large entities, approximately 300 smaller ones. Carol smiled grimly. Signal the fleet. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. No mercy, no quarter, no retreat. The human ships moved like wolves attacking a herd. They didn't fight in neat formations like the aliens did. Instead, they swarmed their targets, using speed and numbers to overwhelm individual Devourer constructs. Commander, Kethval watched in fascination and horror as Carol's ship deliberately crashed into a Devourer feeding unit. The explosion was massive, taking out 3 enemy constructs at once. By the ancestors, Kethval whispered. She destroyed her own ship. That's the 3rd human ship to do that in 10 minutes, his tactical officer reported. They're using their own vessels as weapons. Meanwhile, Colonel Mary Foster was leading a ground assault on the partially consumed planet of Haven 7. The devourer had been feeding on the world for weeks, but millions of people were still alive in underground shelters. Mary's forces landed. Under heavy fire from devourer ground forms, writhing masses of metal and flesh that consumed everything they touched. Her soldiers fought with weapons the aliens had banned as too inhumane. Flamethrowers that burned at 3,000 degrees, chemical weapons that dissolved organic matter, and explosives that turned air itself into a weapon. Colonel Foster. Came a transmission from the alien rescue ship Harmony. Our sensors detect massive chemical contamination from your weapons. Surely there are safer methods? Mary ducked as a devourer tendril swept overhead, then emptied a clip of explosive rounds. Into its base. Captain Tvek, safe methods don't work down here. These things eat energy weapons for breakfast, but they don't like having their molecules rearranged by good old-fashioned chemistry. The alien captain's voice showed obvious distress. But Colonel, the environmental damage will heal, Mary. Finished. Dead people won't. Foster out. Mary's soldiers advanced through the burning landscape, using tactics that would have horrified any civilized observer. They set ambushes using civilian buildings as bait. They poisoned water supplies that the devourers were using to grow. They turned every human instinct for survival into a weapon. When they reached the first shelter, they found 3,000 terrified colonists who had been trapped for weeks. The aliens would have spent hours establishing communication protocols and ensuring the colonists' psychological comfort. Mary's people simply blasted the door open and started carrying people out. "Move! Move!" she shouted to her soldiers. "We've got 15 minutes before this whole area gets carpet-bombed. Get them to the transport ships now." One of the colonists, a young Zentari girl, looked up at Mary with wide eyes. "Are you here to save us?" Mary knelt down despite the danger around them. "Yes, sweetheart. That's exactly why we're here." The girl smiled. "My mother said humans were scary." "We are scary," Mary replied, picking up the child as explosions echoed around. "Them. But we're scary to the things that want to hurt you, not you." Back in space, the main battle was reaching its climax. The human fleet had lost over 200 ships, but they had destroyed most of the Devourer force. Admiral Murphy watched as Captain Ben Tyler led the final assault on the largest enemy construct. "Admiral," Ben's voice crackled over the communications. "System, we're going to ram this thing with everything we've got. Tell my wife I love her." "Then, wait," Murphy started, but it was too late. Tyler's ship, loaded with every nuclear weapon they could find, crashed into the Devourer mothership at full speed. The explosion lit up space like a new star, completely destroying the enemy formation. In the aftermath, the alien crews sat in stunned silence. They had won, but the cost in human lives was staggering. Over 50,000 human soldiers and sailors had died in a single day. Commander Kethvil finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "How do you do it? How do you sacrifice so much?" "Admiral." Murphy's face was tired and sad, but his voice was steady. "Because someone has to. Because if we don't, then everyone dies instead of just some of us." "But the cost." "The cost is what makes it meaningful," Murphy replied. "If it was easy, if it didn't hurt, then it wouldn't be a sacrifice. Our people died so that your people could live. That's not a tragedy, Commander. That's the point." Doctor Frank Taylor, working from his laboratory ship, had spent the battle developing new biological weapons, specifically designed to target devourer consumption processes. His creations were viruses that attacked the enemy's ability to convert matter into energy. When he presented his findings to the Joint Command, several alien scientists physically recoiled. "Dr. Taylor," said the ethereal researcher Quen, "these organisms are designed specifically to cause suffering. How can you create such things?" Frank looked up from his microscope, his eyes red with exhaustion. "Because suffering is better. and extinction. Because sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to become something it fears. But the ethical implications... The ethical implications, Frank interrupted, are that we have a weapon that can stop the devourers from eating. More civilizations. Everything else is philosophy. The weapon worked. Within hours of deployment, devourer feeding rates dropped by 70%. The biological agents spread through their network, causing system-wide failures in their consumption processes. But the aliens who watched the deployment never forgot what they saw. Humans deliberately creating diseases as weapons, using life itself as a tool of war. That night, intercepted alien communications revealed the galaxy's growing fear of their human allies. They fight like demons, reported one Vorthic commander. They show no regard for their own lives. Worse, added an ethereal diplomat, they show no regard for civilized warfare. They use any method that works, no matter how barbaric. But there was another message from Admiral Kreckstall to his government. They are savage, yes, but they are our savages, and they are saving us. The message that concerned Admiral Murphy the most came from Hive Queen X Tacha. We asked them to help us fight monsters. But I begin to fear we have simply recruited bigger monsters to our side. Murphy read the message and sighed. He had known this day would come. The aliens had needed humanity's capacity for violence, but they had never understood that violence came with a price. The humans had saved the galaxy by becoming exactly what the galaxy feared most. The question now was whether the galaxy would thank them or try to destroy them. Murphy looked out at the stars, knowing that the war was far from over. There were more devourer fleets out there, and humanity would have to stop them all. But he also knew that after today, the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. They had seen what humanity could do when the gloves came off. Some would be grateful. Others would be terrified. But none of them would ever again make the mistake of laughing when humans tried to warn them about the darkness in the universe. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Murphy just hoped it was a lesson they could live with. The final battle came 18 months later. Admiral Steve Murphy stood on the bridge of the UE's Retribution, staring at the massive structure that hung in space before them. The Devourer Prime was larger than most moons, a writhing mass of metal, and flesh that fed directly from 3 different stars. Admiral, Captain Janet Stone reported from the tactical station. Long-range scans confirm it. This is their source. Every Devourer fleet in the galaxy is connected to this thing. Steve nodded grimly. And this is where we end it. Signal all ships. Begin final approach. The combined human-alien fleet numbered over 2,000 vessels. But Steve knew that most of them wouldn't survive the next few hours. The Devourer Prime was defended by constructs larger than anything they had faced before. Admiral Murphy, came a transmission from Admiral Kreckstall aboard the ethereal flagship Enlightenment. Are you certain about this strategy? The casualties will be enormous. Admiral Kreckstall, every day we wait, the devourers grow stronger. Every day we hesitate, they consume more worlds. This ends today, no matter what it costs. General Rachel Stone led the most dangerous part of the mission. Her task force of 50 ships would penetrate the Devourer Prime's outer defenses and deliver Dr. Patricia Lee's final weapon directly to the core. Patricia had spent 2 years working on the ultimate solution to the Devourer problem. Her device was elegant in its simplicity. It would turn the enemy's own consumption process against them, creating a chain reaction that would destroy their entire network. But someone had to deliver it by hand. Someone had to fly into the heart of the enemy structure and activate it manually. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. General Stone, Patricia said as they prepared to launch, remember, you have to reach the energy conversion chamber at the very center. The device won't work anywhere else. Rachel smiled. Doc, after everything we've been through, do you really think I'm going to mess this up now? Patricia's eyes were wet with tears. Rachel, you know you're not coming back from this. I know. But my kids will grow up in a galaxy where they don't have to be afraid. That's worth it. The assault began with a coordinated strike by every human ship in the fleet. They didn't try to be elegant or efficient. They simply threw everything they had at the Devourer defenses, using their own ships as battering rams when their weapons ran out. Captain Carol Green, commanding her third ship after losing the previous. 2. Led a squadron of converted cargo vessels directly into the enemy point defenses. Her ships were loaded with nothing but explosives and determination. "This is Green Squadron," she transmitted as enemy fire tore through her formation. "We're going to make a hole. Rachel, you better be ready to use it." Carol's ship exploded in a brilliant flash, taking out 3 Devourer defense nodes. Her squadron followed her example, sacrificing themselves to clear a path for Rachel's task force. Commander Kethful watched from his ship, unable to speak. In 2 years of fighting alongside humans, he had never gotten used to their willingness to die for their mission. "Captain Tyler," he called to his human liaison. "How do they do it? How do they face death so calmly?" Ben Tyler, who had somehow survived 3 ship destructions and was now commanding his 4th vessel, answered without taking his eyes off the tactical display. "Because we know that someone has to do it. And if not us, then who?" Rachel's task. Force fought through layers of Devourer constructs, each one larger and more dangerous than the last. By the time they reached the Prime's outer shell, only 12 ships remained out of 50. "All ships, this is Stone. We're going in. It's been an honor serving with you all." The final approach was chaos. Devourer defenses tore through Rachel's, remaining ships one by one. Her own vessel, the U-East Defiance, was falling apart around her as she guided it toward the energy core. "Stone to Murphy," she transmitted as her ship's hull began to buckle. "I can see the target, beginning final approach." "Rachel," Steve's voice came back, heavy with emotion. "Tell Patricia her weapon better work, because we're not getting another chance at this." "It'll work, Steve, and even if it doesn't, at least we made them pay for every inch." Rachel's ship crashed through the final defensive barrier and into the Devourer Prime's core. The energy conversion chamber was exactly where Patricia had predicted. A massive sphere of writhing darkness that pulsed with the power of 3 stars. With her ship dying around her, Rachel manually activated Patricia's device. The weapon was no bigger than a briefcase, but it contained the accumulated knowledge of human physics and alien science, weaponized into something that could destroy a force that had consumed half the galaxy. "Device activated?" Rachel transmitted. 30 seconds to detonation. It's been a hell of a ride, everyone." The explosion that followed was visible from 3 star systems away. The Devourer Prime simply ceased to exist, taking with it the entire network of creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for 2 years. Across space, every remaining Devourer construct went silent. The feeding stopped. The advance halted. The nightmare was over, but the cost had been staggering. Humanity had lost nearly half its space fleet and over 200,000 military personnel. The aliens had suffered far fewer casualties, but they had been forced to watch their human allies die by the thousands to protect alien worlds. 3 months after the final battle, Ambassador Jake Morrison stood once again before the Galactic Council, but this time the chamber was different. Many of the seats were empty. Species that had been consumed by the Devourers would never return. And the survivors looked at Jake with expressions he had never seen before. Fear, gratitude, respect, and something else. A wariness that hadn't been there 7 years ago. "Ambassador Morrison," Chairman Veltar said, his silver skin looking older and more worn, "the Galactic Council wishes to formally thank humanity for its service during the Devourer War. Jake nodded. The thanks are appreciated, Chairman. But they're not necessary. We did what needed to be done. High Counselor Zethkar stood up, his forearms trembling slightly. Ambassador, the Council has voted to grant humanity full membership in the galactic community. You will have access to all our technology, all our trade routes, and a voice in all major decisions. However, Zethkar continued, and Jake heard the word that he had been expecting. The Council also feels that certain RESTRICTIONS might be appropriate. What kind of restrictions? Jake asked, though he already knew. Admiral Krextal's crystal form flickered nervously. Your military capabilities, Ambassador. They are ... significant. Perhaps it would be wise to establish some form of oversight. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Around the chamber, alien representatives waited for his response. Finally, he spoke. 7 years ago, I stood in this same chamber and warned you about what humanity was capable of. You laughed. You thought we were primitive and violent. You were right about the violent part, Jake continued. We are violent. We are dangerous. We do things that horrify civilized people. But we're violent in defense of others, not in conquest of them. For 2 years, we bled and died to save your worlds. We became the monsters you needed us to become. And now that the danger is over, you want to put us back in our cage. Chairman Veltar leaned forward. Ambassador, surely you can understand our concerns. Your species' capacity for destruction is ... considerable. Yes, it is, Jake agreed. And that's exactly why you should trust us with it. Because we know what it costs. Because we understand that power like ours comes with responsibility. The Council has decided. Zethkar began. The Council can decide whatever it wants, Jake interrupted. But you can't uninvent what we've shown you. You can't unknown what you now know about the universe. Jake looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from a dozen species. You've learned that the galaxy isn't always safe. You've learned that sometimes civilized solutions don't work. And you've learned that sometimes you need people like us, people willing to do what you can't. We're not asking for your permission to exist, Jake said firmly. We're telling you that we'll continue to be what we've always been. And if something like the Devourers ever shows up again, we'll be ready. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Krextal spoke. Ambassador Morrison, what assurance can you give us that humanity will not use its power against us? Jake smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. The same assurance we gave you 7 years ago, Admiral. You just have to trust that we meant what we said. As Jake left the council chamber, he could hear the aliens beginning their debates about humanity's place in the galaxy. Some wanted to restrict human military power. Others wanted to ally with humanity for protection. A few wise voices suggested that they should simply be grateful and leave humanity alone. Outside, Dr. Amy Johnson was waiting for him. She had been promoted to head of the new Joint Human-Alien Research Institute. How did it go? She asked. About as expected, Jake replied. They're grateful we saved them, but they're terrified of what we might do next. Amy nodded. Serenth asked me the same question yesterday. She wanted to know if humans would use our military power to conquer other species. What did you tell her? I told her the truth, that humans fight to protect things, not to own them. That we become dangerous when something threatens what we love, not when we want something for ourselves.